and welcome. Tonight, the President suspends Abdulrashid Bawa as Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission indefinitely following alleged abuse of office. 10th National Assembly kicks off legislative activities a day after its inauguration. Lawmakers in the upper chamber lay out their agenda for the session. Prepared for impending flood disasters, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, urges federal and state governments as he resigns as member of the House. Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi presents BVAS certificate of compliance from 28 states and the EFCC to court, accuses INEC of refusing service of subpoena to produce other needed documents. On business news tonight, Naira strengthens to 664 against the dollar at the investors and exporters window of the foreign exchange market as CBN allows commercial banks to trade forex freely.
On sports news tonight, FIFA agrees a Women's World Cup broadcast deal for top European nations, putting an end to the threat of a blackout.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, federal government set to roll out measures targeted at mitigating the adverse effects of fuel subsidy removal to provide cheap fuel through compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas.
And in international news from London, at least 3 people have been killed and another 13 injured after Russia attacked Odessa with what Ukraine says was 10 missiles and 10 drones.
There has been another shake-up in the presidency. This time, the president has suspended the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Abdulrashid Bawa, in what is described as a move to allow for a proper investigation into his conduct while in office. The indefinite suspension, according to a statement from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, follows weighty allegations of abuse of office. Consequently, Mr. Bawa has been directed to immediately hand over to the Director of Operations of the Commission to oversee affairs of the anti-graft agency, pending the conclusion of investigations. Mr. Bawa's suspension comes less than a week after the president suspended the central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, over alleged infractions, and barely hours after meeting with the president at the State House. The youngest chairman of the EFCC since the creation of the commission, Mr. Bawa, assumed office after former President Muhammadu Buhari removed the former EFCC boss, Ibrahim Mago, in July 2020 over allegations of corruption. The suspended EFCC chair was the chief investigator for the alleged multi-billion naira fraud case against former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diziani Alison Madueke. Between January and November 2020, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission said it had obtained 3,440 convictions for financial crimes as well as cyber crimes. Well, let's head now to the National Assembly, where the upper and lower legislative chambers held their first plenary a day after the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. And as activities kick off in earnest in the 10th session, some lawmakers in the upper chamber have been speaking on the issues that they will be addressing in the coming days. Meanwhile, one of the first resolutions of the Senate today was to send an official message to President Bola Tinubu and international parliamentary bodies, informing them that a quorum of the Senate has assembled and that presiding officers of the 10th Senate have been elected.
This is the first plenary session at the upper chamber after the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. Expectedly, the lawmakers exchange pleasantries as they await the commencement of sitting. The President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, his deputy, Senator Jibrin Barau, and other principal officers arrive in the chamber and make their ways to their seats. After everyone had settled in, the President of the Senate called the meeting to order and almost immediately asked the non-senators to leave the chamber so the Senate could have a closed-door session. When the doors were opened again to the media, the Senate resolves to write to the President, Bola Tinubu, international parliamentary bodies and others, informing them that the 10th Assembly has begun in earnest. The resolution is following the motion moved by the Deputy Senate President.
The Forum of the Senate has assembled, and the presiding officers of the 10th National Assembly of the Senate have been elected as follows. President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, Northwest. Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Barau Jibrin, North.
The President of the Senate then set up a committee to address pertinent issues of members of the Senate.
I'd like to set up a committee to look into the welfare of the members.
Outside the chamber, some senators speak on issues they are looking forward to handle.
We will focus on the Constitution to do with the federal system, fiscal federalism, the issue of reducing power from the federal government to the state, all of the above.
We are trying to see what we can do in terms of legislation to make sure that every aspect of Kogi State, where federal presence should be, there must be legislation to compel the federal government to come in and work for us.
The challenges we have about security, which is, as I usually opine, closely related to unemployment. We must begin to patronize ourselves as Nigerians in all ramifications.
The Senate has adjourned plenary to July 4, 2023.
Meanwhile, the immediate past Speaker of the House, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, today resigned his membership of the House of Representatives to take up his role as Chief of Staff to the President. His letter of resignation was presented on the floor of the chamber by the Speaker, Abbas Tajuddin, during the first plenary of the 10th House of Representatives. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports that as part of the day's proceedings, the lawmakers urged the federal and state governments to prepare for impending flood disasters following the prediction by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency.
The 10th House of Representatives is in session. Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin leads the procession for the commencement of the very first plenary of the 10th House of Representatives. A motion of urgent importance is raised by the immediate past Speaker on the need for the federal government and state government to mitigate the impact of the impending floods as predicted by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency.
I had the privilege of meeting with the DG NEMA just about a week ago, and he painfully intimated me of the impending devastation from floods that may ravage this country if we do not take immediate action to either mitigate or stop the consequences.
His motion is adopted as lawmakers also resolve to invite the National Emergency Management Agency to brief the House on measures in place in preparation for the floods.
Those against you say nay. The ayes have it.
Raising another point of order, Honorable Gbajabiamila resigns his seat as member of the 10th House to move on to a new appointment by the President.
As you are aware, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, has asked that I join his administration as Chief of Staff in the Presidency. After my long service in the House of Representatives, I have agreed to serve in this new capacity.
May I take my leave, Mrs. Speaker?
Thank you, honorable colleagues. We wish you all the best in your new endeavor. Our prayers will continue to be with you. Thank you and good luck. Thank you. Thank you.
A point of order which could be considered to be sensitive is raised by Honorable Solomon Bob, but shut down by the Speaker.
Yesterday, member after member rose and recited what I would call religious incantations and prefacing their comments yesterday regarding voting with religious incantations. We are enjoined not to adopt any state religion by our Constitution, Section 10. And we as key members of the government are not allowed to espouse or encourage espousal of any religious or any religion or any religious approach.
Honorable colleague, I will want to implore you to step down this particular issue.
Meanwhile, the House is asking the federal government to urgently deploy palliatives to mitigate the impact of the removal of subsidy on Nigerians. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And to the court, as part of efforts to prove his case before the Presidential Election Petition Court, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has presented bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS certificate of compliance from 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. At the resumed hearing of the petition, the party also tendered election results downloaded from the INEC portal for Benue, Niger, Edo, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Gombe and Kaduna states. The lead counsel to the Labour Party, Mr. Livi Uzuku, however, informed the court that the office of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission has refused service of a subpoena to produce certain documents needed by the party to prosecute its case. Although the counsel to INEC, President Bola Tinubu, Vice President Kashim Shettima and the All Progressives Congress opposed the admissibility of the documents, the court admitted the documents before adjourning further hearing to Thursday, June the 15th, at the instance of the petitioners.
It's a calm atmosphere as the hearing continues in the petitions filed by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party and former Vice President Mr. Atiku Abubakar challenging the election of President Bola Tinubu. The day begins with the hearing of the petitions filed by Mr. Peter Obi and the Labour Party, as the party presents the bimodal voter accreditation system certificate of compliance from 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The party also tenders election results downloaded from INEC's portal for Benue, Niger, Edo, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Gombe and Kaduna states to further prove its case. Although counsel to INEC, President Tinubu, Vice President Shettima and the All Progressives Congress opposed the admissibility of the documents, the court admitted them. In the course of the proceedings, counsel to the Labour Party informs the court that the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission is evading service of a subpoena from the court. This claim generates some arguments as the counsel to INEC refutes the claim. Upon resumption later in the afternoon, the court hears the petition of Mr. Atiku Abubakar and the People's Democratic Party. Counsel to the petitioners presents some documents which the respondents oppose. However, the court admits the documents. The petitioners then proceed to call on more witnesses, a statistician who adopts his statement on oath. The cross-examination of the witness is reserved for the next hearing date. Further hearing has been adjourned to Thursday, the 15th of June, 2023.
Meanwhile, hearing has formally commenced in the petition filed by the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in the March 18th election, Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes Viva, challenging the return of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Although the petitioner was absent in court today, his lead counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olumide Ayeni, called 4 witnesses in proof of his client's petition. The first witness, Mr. Obinna Nwokeshi, described himself as the supervisor ward chair of Ilukpeji Industrial Estate, Ward 14 in Mushin local government. Led in evidence in chief by the council, the witness identified his statement on oath made April the 9th and urged the tribunal to accept it as his evidence in the petition. The document was subsequently tendered and admitted in evidence by the tribunal. Under cross-examination from counsel to INEC, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Charles Edosonwa, the witness admitted that he was not a polling agent, but said he supervised the polling agents in the 23 units of the ward. He also admitted that he was not a collation officer at the ward level. When asked if INEC was a part of the violence, the witness answered no. He also reiterated that he could not be everywhere, and his testimony covered reports of agents who reported to him. Under cross-examination from counsel to the Governor of Lagos and his deputy, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Bode Olanipekun, the witness admitted that he wrote his statement himself. The tribunal also listened to the evidence of 3 other witnesses before adjourning further hearing till Thursday, June the 15th. In part two, after the break, police arrest 18 persons in connection with communal crisis in Oju local government area of Benue State that claimed the lives of 4 people on Sunday. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. The President suspends Abdulrasheed Bauer as chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission indefinitely following alleged abuse of office. 10th National Assembly kicks off legislative activities a day after its inauguration. Lawmakers in the upper chamber lay out their agenda for the session. Prepare for impending flood disasters. Former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, urges federal and state governments as he resigns as member of the House. And at least 3 people have been killed and another 13 injured after Russia attacked Odessa with what Ukraine says was 10 missiles and 10 drones. And we're still in the courts. The Federal High Court Abuja has ordered the Central Bank of Nigeria to pay a non-governmental organization, Media Rights Action, MRA, 1 million naira as damages for wrongful denial of access to information. The CBN Governor and Attorney General of the Federation are joined in the suit. In a letter in May 2020, the MRA had, among other things, requested for copies of all the CBN's data protection policies issued in conformity with the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation 2019, which the Apex Bank failed to provide. Delivering judgment, Justice Donatus Okorowo held that the failure of the CBN to disclose or make available to MRA the information requested amounts to a violation of its right of access to information as guaranteed by the Freedom of Information Act 2011. Accordingly, the judge issued an order compelling the central bank to make all the information requested by MRA available to the organization. And to other stories, over 20 houses have been submerged and several families displaced following a landslide that occurred in Umuchima community, Idato South local government area of Imo State. Some of the residents of the community whose houses were affected in the landslide say if nothing is done urgently by the government, more houses will be swept away and the entire community cut off from its neighbors. The landslide, which is about 30 feet, has also affected major federal highway in the community linking Imo and Anambra states. According to them, although no life was lost, properties worth millions of naira have gone down the drain. And out to security, police in Benue State have arrested 18 persons in connection with last Sunday's communal crisis in Oju local government area that left 4 people dead and many properties destroyed. This comes as the Benue State government has moved to institute a judicial commission of inquiry on the incident. The Benue State Deputy Governor, Mr. Sam Ode, who led a delegation to the area to assess the situation, explains that the Judicial Commission of Inquiry will ascertain the causes of the frequent clashes in the area.
The ruins from last Sunday's communal clash between the residents of Ibila and Oju, 2 dominant communities in Oju local government area of Benue State. Houses, vehicles and other properties worth millions of naira now lie waste, and 4 lives lost from both sides. A relative of one of the deceased gives an account.
I discovered that there is crisis. I have to run with my children back to the police station. This morning, I heard that they have already gone to my house, burned my house down, my family house. Even my junior brother, the one that followed me second time, then killed him.
According to eyewitness reports, the crisis started when one of their own, Professor Johnson Agbinya, who was recently licensed to operate a private university, moved site in the Ibila community. Youths from the Oju community allegedly stormed the area and crisis broke out, leading to the loss of 4 lives, according to local sources. The violence has left this carnage behind, and the Deputy Governor of Benue State, who is visiting the scene, is not happy about it. A meeting with the leaders of the communities was convened, and one of the traditional rulers explains one of the major reasons why the clash could have happened.
It's either that Opa is claiming ownership of that market, or Ibila and Oju are claiming ownership of the barrack here. And this situation worsened when they say Oju local government will headquarters in Oju. How do we define headquarters Oju? If we have to take up the radius, even my village is Oju.
The deputy governor responded with a warning against acts of criminality.
If we continue to spare our people who engage in this kind of heinous activities, there will be no deterrence. Based on your security background, you know that where there is no punishment, there is no deterrence.
Meanwhile, the State Police Command is not sleeping on this and is set to charge all those arrested to court. The recurring clashes between indigents of Oju and Ibila is one that has had negative effect on the growth and development of Oju local government, and it continues to set them backwards.
In other security matters, the Department of State Services in the Northeast region has raised an alarm over what it describes as active recruitment by members by the Islamic movement in Nigeria. According to the DSS State Director Hussaini Abdullahi, this constitutes a major security threat, noting that the influx of bandits from other parts of the north to the Northeast region has seen a resurgence of kidnapping among other security threats. Mr. Hussaini made the remark during a visit to the Bauchi State Governor, Mr. Bala Mohammed. In his response, Governor Mohammed gave the assurance that government will take the necessary steps to reduce the threats.
Our issue is not just about criminality or crime. There are issues of negligence by the subnational, and negligence caused by inadequacies and limitations to meet expanding needs of the people. And of course, lack of M&E and collaboration. We have to manage scarce resources and do so much. And once we are not doing that, these people will step in. It is frightening if members of the Islamic movement are dispensing some government kind of assistance to lure people into submission. This we cannot afford, because our people are very, very gullible. Mr. President has said it when we met about poverty. We have to fight the poverty of mind and poverty of everything, lack of education and so on and so forth. We have all raised the issues, governance issues, and we'll do our best to make sure we work with you. And at the federal level, we will try to instigate more concern in terms of recruitment to reduce the gap of citizen to security ratio.
Meanwhile, the president has expressed sadness over the boat mishap which occurred in Kwara State on Monday, claiming many lives. It was gathered that the boat accident led to the death of over 100 people who were wedding guests at the Igbo village in Patigi local government area of the state. In a statement, President Bola Tinubu condoled with the families and friends of the victims of the tragic mishap, as well as the government and people of Kwara State, while urging the Kwara State government and relevant federal government agencies to look into the circumstances surrounding the boat accident. The president promised that his administration will look into the challenges of inland water transportation in the country. And to River State, where petroleum tanker drivers today staged a protest to the office of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, in Port Harcourt, the state capital, demanding the release of their trucks and petroleum products impounded some months ago. The protesters, led by their national vice chairman, also blocked the popular Oluobasanjo Road in Port Harcourt, leading to the state office of the NSCDC with their trucks. They accuse the State Command of the Corps of selling the petroleum products in the trucks, despite a court order directing the agency to release the vehicles. But the River State Command of the NSCDC condemned the action of the tanker drivers, explaining that the command followed due process in seizing the trucks.
Since August last year, about three of our trucks carry PMS were arrested by Operation Seek River State, which the union, immediately the union entered the matter and asked them what is the matter. They said they want to check the product, which we allowed them to check the product. At the end of the day, they sent the matter to court, which we followed the matter up. In the court, after some while, the court released the truck for us. For we to go back and carry our truck, we entered the civil defense yard. On getting there, we discovered that the civil defense has sold all the product.
The Joint Task Force has the mandate to quench the menace of oil theft and vandalism of oil pipeline in River State. And being the lead agency in safeguarding critical national assets and infrastructure, the command proceeded to the Federal High Court to seek for the forfeiture of the content. And it was actually granted. And before the content were forfeited, the command also made an advert in the dailies in Punch and one other local dailies to inform the public about the action that is about to be taken. So, and as we all know, that when forfeitures are made, the proceeds are always remitted to the federal government coffers.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Naira strengthens to 664 against the dollar at the investors and exporters window of the foreign exchange market as CBN allows commercial banks to trade forex freely. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back. Let's switch gears now to Abuja studios where Linda is standing by. Hi, Linda, looking radiant in red.
Thank you. Hello, Millicent. The president has begun putting in place a structural approach to make available cheap fuel through compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas to mitigate the effects of subsidy removal on Nigerians. The group CEO of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, stated this during a chat with State House correspondents after a meeting with the president, explaining that the structural plan, which is already in progress, is part of the president's palliative measures for citizens. He says the plans will be rolled out soon. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports the president's activities today.
It has been a day of visits for the President Bola Tinubu, who since his assumption into office had engaged severally with the group CEO of the NNPCL on the thorny issue of fuel subsidy removal.
I'm aware that Mr. President is working on several steps to bring palliatives on ground so that Nigerians can benefit from it. More than anything, there's a structural approach to make sure that Nigerians have access to cheap fuel in the form of CNG and LPG, and this is work in progress, and I believe that this will be rolled out very soon. There's already ongoing rehabilitation exercise going on the refinery.
The managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission was also received by the president, who has recently vowed to halt the menace of crude oil theft in the country.
What we need to do is that if we intervene in the areas of underdevelopment, definitely oil theft will also reduce. So we, as an interventionist agency, we are not involved in pipeline security. There are people who are doing pipeline security, and the NNPC have also awarded contract for pipeline security and all that. So for us, it's just to support the youth too. And once we support the youth in time to carry out some engagement program for youths and empowerment program for youth, we believe that, yes, the mindset will also shift.
Separately, the subject of insecurity became central when President Tinubu met with governors of Nasarawa State, two royal fathers, Emir of Borgu and Kontagora from Niger State, and then the immediate past governor of Katsina State.
Last week, we got some few expatriates again that were kidnapped at their site, between Garoku and Dari. And again, we were able to get all of them out yesterday. So I'm sure Mr. President got his security report that some of those issues came up. I saw the commitment from his own side, because from what you can see while I'm here, there are already some heads of security agencies that are here. And he said he's going to discuss with them immediately. And in the past, we had taken joint military operation in the area. And he said that that is also another option that he will look at.
Engagements also continued at the villa when the president met with the former managing director of the NDDC, Mr. Timi Alaibe, and former director general of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, Mr. Dakuku Peterside. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The Nigerian Navy is advocating the need to harvest and harness all existing data about Nigeria's waters to enable effective navigation and protection of the country's coastal areas. The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Gambo, stated this at a news conference to commemorate this year's World Hydrography Day in Abuja. He was represented by the Chief of Policy and Planning, Rear Admiral Zaidu Garba. According to him, the 2023 World Hydrography Day intends to awaken the collective consciousness of Nigerians towards pooling marine data sets for sustainable ocean development in Nigeria. Nigerians may have to grapple with the current price of fuel for a while, as Nigeria's Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority says the price will largely be determined by the strength of the naira against the dollar in the foreign exchange market. Now, this is according to the Chief Executive Officer of the Regulatory Authority, Mr. Farouk Ahmed, who was speaking after meeting with heads of oil marketing companies in Abuja today. He, however, assures Nigerians that the agency will ensure that petroleum products are available, as it is already processing licenses for independent marketers who desire to import fuel into the country. To company news, the president of Belema Oil Producing Limited, Mr. Tien Jack Rich, is committing to building an eco-friendly crude oil terminal in Rivers State. He made the pledge when he received his license from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority to establish the Belema Sweet Export Terminal. Mr. Jack Rich says the company is building Africa's first hybrid crude oil export terminal in Kula, Akokotoru local government area of Rivers State.
Seated here are stakeholders involved in the negotiations for the establishment of a crude oil export terminal. The negotiations culminated in the issuance of the license by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. The Petroleum Industry Act empowers the authority to issue the license to increase investments in the nation's oil and gas industry.
The authority is committed to ease of doing business in the industry, and we're always welcome and are encouraged to come and invest in Nigeria at any time, at any sector within the midstream and downstream sector.
Belema Oil Producing Limited is one of the first companies to receive the license to establish such a terminal, and the company's president is committing to respect the environment.
We went in from the disruptive and radical point of view to ensure that this export terminal has, a hybrid operating system, which means we will not just power this terminal with the traditional energy that is considered so harmful to the environment, but we're also looking at integrating renewable energy so that we can operate a hybrid and the first hybrid export terminal. The full operation of this terminal is going to add over $11 billion to our national economic earnings, because the field has a capacity to receive over 400,000 barrels of crude every single day.
Mr. Jack Rich is aware of the responsibility ahead of him, especially for the host community.
Basically, there will be job creation. A lot of the youths without job will have access to job. And not only that, we are showing that we are in sync with COP26, with COP27, in terms of being conscious of our environment, despite the fact that Nigeria only emits less than 1% of total Africa greenhouse gas emission.
Belema's Sweet Export Terminal is expected to serve as an alternative route for crude oil export for the community after a full-year shutdown of the transnational pipeline.
That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Linda. Intercontinental Distillers Limited has launched an initiative to advocate as well as encourage Nigerians to pursue their endeavours with hard work and prayers. During the launch of the project in Lagos, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the company, Patrick Anegbe, explains that the new tagline, Journey with Authentic Prayers, the company aims to transform the way its customers and target audience interact with its brand, Eagle Aromatic Schnapps.
That has been chosen.
4 months after the relaunch of its repackaged flagship product, Eagle Aromatic Schnapps, Intercontinental Distillers Limited brings together its partners to celebrate the start of a new journey. For as much as it is known in African traditions, schnapps, an alcoholic beverage, comes as a ready tool to celebrate achievements and to say prayers when it matters. The new catchline suggests that hard work, prayers and belief form a winning recipe for success.
From generation to generation, our elders have passed on a recipe for success. The ingredients, they say, are hard work, prayer and belief. Eagle Aromatic Schnapps, the authentic prayer drink, seeks to remind Nigerians, especially the youths, of this age-long cultural value, especially against the backdrop of today's relatives.
The company's head of marketing speaks more on the initiative.
We have a moral responsibility to continue to drive what drives us, and what drives us is embedded in culture and tradition. And one of the very strong sustainers of our culture is prayers. And traditionally, we have a way of doing our prayers. We do our prayers with libations. And we're saying this brand, which is the authentic prayer drink, sits very squarely as the best of the best in class to be able to deliver on the aspiration of Africans.
To push the essence of the project, Eagle Aromatic Schnapps will embark on road shows and other activities.
We'll be visiting various markets all over Nigeria and essentially to engage our customers and our consumers, to reward them. Like I said, our kings are the custodian of our cultures and traditions. So we'll visit palaces, we'll partner with them to also be able to propagate our message, the message of authentic prayers.
Intercontinental Distillers Limited believes that by promoting the message of hard work and prayers, Eagle Aromatic Schnapps will cause its target audience to appreciate personal effort and spiritual devotion in their lives, a mindset that will bring an attitudinal change among the youth.
And much to do about the exchange rate unification. And Melinda Kilemi has some of the answers, if not all, on Business News next.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Yes, indeed, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has eased its control on the naira, allowing the currency to freely float as it authorizes commercial banks and dealers to sell forex at market-determined rates. The move by the CBN is in fulfillment of President Tinubu's call for a unification of the country's exchange rate. According to data from the FMDQ, the exchange rate between the naira and dollar closed today at about 664 naira 4 kobo to a dollar at the official investor and exporter, that's the I&E window, as against the closing rate of 471 naira 67 kobo recorded on Tuesday. The naira traded between 750 and 755 naira per dollar at the I&E window earlier today. Meanwhile, the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE, has applauded the bold step by the current administration to officially float the naira. In a statement, the economic think tank says the new framework is not a devaluation policy, but will allow for flexible rate adjustments to make the market predictable, equitable, transparent, and sustainable. The CPPE also adds that the policy will help the FX market by unlocking the huge potential for investment, jobs, and capital inflows. Nigeria has regained its position as the top crude oil producer in Africa for the month of May. And that's according to the latest report by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Now, the report shows that Nigeria's oil output increased by 15.6% to 1.3 million barrels per day in May, from 1.1 million barrels per day recorded in April this year. The latest data comes amid growing debate over how accurate the oil production measurement system in the country is. In April, Nigeria experienced its first loss in crude oil production, reporting a daily output of 999,000 barrels. The equities market increased again in today's trading as key indexes reach all-time highs. Will Ibong tells us more.
Welcome to the stock market report. That's a loud roar, loud enough to usher in the banking index, which closed today by over 26%, the highest ever seen on the NGX. Zenith Bank, GTCO, Access Holdings, UBA, and FBN Holdings. I have just listed the Tier 1 banks, not to mention other Tier 2 banking stocks, which all recorded a nearly 10% increase in today's trading session. Equities have surpassed all expectations at the NGX. Most key market indexes all hit all-time highs, and the total turnover exceeded what we saw yesterday. All these drove the all-share index further up by another massive 3.13%. The index is now tiptoeing around the 60K level and market value at the 32 trillion naira mark. Brilliant performance today, by the way. A lot has been happening, and we've had pronouncements and actions for activities in the market. Today, the Naira firmed against the dollar at the parallel markets as the central bank allows banks and dealers to freely trade forex in the foreign exchange markets, in line with President Tinubu's plan to unify multiple exchange rate window. Inflation numbers, however, are expected tomorrow from the National Bureau of Statistics. Let's see what shakeup that will bring to the markets. And that's the stock market report for today. I'm Will Ibong.
Thanks, Melinda. And to around the world in 5, a fire broke out near a business center and warehouse of a retail chain in Ukraine's Black Sea city of Odessa, as firefighters worked to contain the blaze allegedly caused by a Russian missile attack. Here's Simon Pusey with more on this and other international stories.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. At least 3 people have been killed and another 13 injured after Russia attacked Odessa with what Ukraine says was 10 missiles and 10 drones. Here, footage showing the destruction of a multi-story building following the missile strike on the Ukrainian Black Sea port city. The strategic port is vital to Ukraine's grain exports through the Black Sea, but it has come under fire relatively infrequently during the war. 3 civilians were also killed in the Donetsk region. The strikes come as Ukraine's counter-offensive continues, with officials claiming around a square mile of territory has been gained in the past 3 days. 2 Japanese soldiers have been killed and another injured after a new recruit opened fire at a military training range in central Japan. An 18-year-old trainee was detained on the spot and arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, according to officials. They allege the male shooter fired 8 times at instructors during a shooting drill in Gifu. Details about the other victims in their 20s and 50s are not yet known, but they were all instructors at the facility. 2 of the 3 people killed in Tuesday's attacks in Nottingham have been named as students at Nottingham University. 19-year-olds Barnaby Webber and Grace Kumar were killed, as was Ian Coates, a school caretaker in his 60s. 3 people were hit by a van police believe was stolen from the older victim. A suspect was tasered by police before being arrested on suspicion of murder. Counter-terrorism police are involved in the investigation, but no link to extremism has been confirmed.
Mr. Speaker, I know the whole House will want to thank the emergency services for their ongoing response to the shocking incident in Nottingham yesterday. Our thoughts are with those injured and with the families of those who lost their lives.
Thousands of mourners have gathered outside Milan's Duomo Cathedral for the state funeral of Silvio Berlusconi. People gathered in lines along the route of his hearse earlier. His state funeral was held in the city's Grand Cathedral and was led by the Archbishop of Milan as Italy held a national day of mourning. The former Prime Minister, Italy's longest-serving premier, who led 4 governments across 3 spells as Prime Minister, died on Monday, aged 86. He had been unwell for several years. Local Italian media reported that Mr. Berlusconi passed away after being admitted to hospital last Friday. Around 45,000 people in India and Pakistan have been evacuated as parts of the countries brace for an extremely severe cyclone to hit on Thursday evening. Biparjoy, a cyclone over the Arabian Sea, is forecast to make landfall in Kutch in the western Indian state of Gujarat. In Pakistan, the storm is expected to hit the coast of Sindh province and affect parts of Karachi city. 7 people have died in India amid heavy rains so far. The Gujarat government said it has evacuated nearly 38,000 people to safety from its coastal districts. The Weather Office has warned people of blackouts and flooding.
NDRF has deployed 18 teams. 1 team has been deployed in Diu, UT. And besides NDRF, 13 teams of SDRF have also been deployed. There have been massive evacuation which has been undertaken since the past 2 days by the stakeholders, including NDRF, the state forces, and about 45,000 plus locals have been evacuated to safer places.
At least 59 migrants have drowned and more than 100 have been rescued after their fishing vessel capsized off the coast of southern Greece. The shipwreck is the deadliest off Greece this year. It is unclear how many people were on the vessel when it sank about 50 miles southwest of Pylos. Greece's Coast Guard said the boat was spotted in international waters late on Tuesday, but that the passengers refused any help and that none on board were wearing life jackets. The boat was reportedly en route to Italy from Libya, with most of those on board reportedly men in their 20s. And Pope Francis has had surgery on his abdomen at Rome's Gemelli Hospital. That's according to a Vatican statement. It added that his medical team had decided in recent days that surgery was required and that he was expected to stay in hospital for a few days to recover. Pope Francis has been working from hospital after a hernia surgery. The Vatican has cancelled all of the Pope's audiences until June the 18th. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. And let's begin from home, where the coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, Joseph Osero, believes the nation is blessed with good footballers, but admits he cannot invite every player to the national team at the same time. He told journalists at the press conference ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Sierra Leone on Sunday that he expects players who did not get invited now to know that they will get their invitation and their chance pretty soon. And great news, the threat of a blackout in Europe's top football nations has ended as the Women's World Cup will be broadcast in Britain, Spain, France, Germany and Italy after the sports governing body FIFA extended its agreement with the European Broadcasting Union, EBU. Last year, FIFA and the EBU had announced an initial deal of confirming that the World Cup will be broadcast free-to-air across 28 European territories, and the agreement has now been extended to cover the 5 nations as well as Ukraine. German Chancellor has marked the 1-year-to-go milestone for Euro 2024 in a competition called a home game for Europe that was an example of a sustainable organization. Germany will host the tournament between June the 14th and July the 14th next year across 10 cities with no stadia required to be built, and cities like Stuttgart, Frankfurt and Berlin, among others, will host the matches. The All England Lawn Tennis Club has announced that the total prize money on offer at this year's Wimbledon has risen to a record $56.5 million, an 11% increase from 2022. Winners and runners-up of the women's and men's singles finals will also see their prize money rising to previous levels in 2019, where they received $2.98 million and $1.45 billion each. The grass court Grand Slam runs from July the 3rd to the 16th in London. That's it on sports. Millicent, it's back to you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. The president today suspended the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Abdulrasheed Bawa, following alleged abuse of office. His suspension is to make way for proper investigation into his conduct while in office. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.